Super quick question here. How many tabs do you have open right now? If you're like me, it's a lot. And if you're running a business, it's a lot more. And with all those tabs, you're spending more time searching through data and less time, growing your business. But HubSpot's customer platform brings all your tools into a single powerful place that your teams can use together. So close those tabs. It's business growing time. Visit HubSpot.com to get started today. Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday, September 10th. I'm John Weigell here with Sara Friedman, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Netflix and other production companies are trying to turn the tide of film and TV production emissions. The entertainment industry gives off hundreds of thousands of tons of CO2 emissions per year, so it kind of makes sense why they're trying to cap that amount. So how are studios trying to fix this, and when can I expect my solar-powered trailer? We'll chat about that in a bit, but before, let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. To start us off today, Google's antitrust trial began yesterday in Virginia as the U.S. Department of Justice accused the tech company of an ad tech monopoly. It's the second antitrust suit brought against the company this year, with the government winning its first battle over search dominance. Next, Big Lots filed for bankruptcy and sold most of its stores to PE firm Nexus Capital Management. The chain, which is already closing about 300 of its 1,400 U.S. stores, secured $707.5 million in financing to stay operational for the time being. From there, we go to the stock market. Only 12 people now are worth above $100 billion after stock slumps reduced the fortunes of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, Dell Technologies founder Michael Dell, and Indian businessman Gautam Adani. Poor billionaires. From there, we go to Amazon. Speaking of billionaires, Amazon invited select Audible narrators to train AI-generated clones of their voices. Narrators will receive royalties on the titles they choose to let their clones narrate. Those contracts must have been very fun to negotiate. Sara, what are your thoughts on this AI voice revolution in podcasting?
Yeah, I mean, we have been talking about things like this for a while. I think with the AI boom, these were questions that we were all asking off the bat, is mimicking people's likeness. So we're starting to see it actually play out. And Amazon, of course, is arguing this is a really effective way to produce audiobooks at a rapid pace. And there are so many books that they haven't been able to turn into audiobooks yet. And this would allow them to do that very quickly. And narrators would not just be able to choose which titles their voices are narrating, but they would also be able to use Amazon's production tools to edit things like the pronunciation and the pacing. So it does sound like they would have a bit more control here. And I think especially important is being able to choose the title that you're narrating, because obviously not everyone agrees with every book. That feels very important for this to be ethically sound.
Right.
And as of May, virtual voices have been used already for about 40,000 Audible titles, which is pretty incredible.
Wow. It makes a lot of sense. I was just going to tell you before we started today that I started listening to an audiobook on Spotify. And I honestly don't know if it's an AI generated or not AI generated voice. It's very clunky sounding. But I'm listening to it every day and I don't love it. I don't love the AI generated tone, honestly. It's very robotic, but at the same time, I'm still listening to it. So maybe that's an omen for the future that we're going to get more used to these voices as time goes on.
Yeah, that's actually been a complaint, is that you're not yet able to filter by AI voices. People, I think, would like that transparency. So maybe that's what we'll see next.
Yeah, that'd be nice. It would be really embarrassing, though, if the author came out of this book and said that they actually narrated it. So I'll just maybe keep the title to myself. And finally, Shaquille O'Neal partnered with Hershey on a new line of gummies shaped like his face. That's fun. Demand for gummies has spiked since the pandemic, actually, not just as candy, but as supplements too. So kudos to Shaq for getting into yet another burgeoning market. Okay, on to the main story today. Hollywood has been a powerhouse, quite literally, for a very long time. The entertainment industry uses so much power annually, and a lot of that translates to huge greenhouse gas emissions. So how are they looking to fix this issue? But first, Sara, how bad is it right now?
It's pretty bad. The entertainment industry produces 700,000 tons of CO2 equivalent a year.
That's a ton of emissions that only film and TV production is generating. And that's not just in California, right?
Yeah.
That's all over the United States, even in Vancouver, a lot of these projects. So from there, can we talk about who exactly is trying to fix this problem? And if it's Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix is working on this, as you said, across the country and across many of its titles. They have some fun examples already happening. The show Virgin River uses battery-powered lights on set. It's usually these huge diesel-powered generators. We're talking 18,000 watt lights, so it's not just like a single light bulb. This would be chugging a lot of power, so it makes a really big difference. And they're also using Teslas to get the talent to and from filming locations. So, we're starting with smaller changes here, but these would add up across the entire film industry if they're implemented. And shows like Bridgerton are experimenting with hydrogen-powered trailers and trucks. Stranger Things tried out solar-powered trailers. In Netflix's Albuquerque studio, it invested in EV fast chargers, battery and solar storage systems, and geothermal water loops. So they're definitely thinking about this. And I think it's tricky. There's a limit to how much you can control, while on location in Vancouver getting the shot. But I think these are creative little ways to kind of start enacting some change there.
Yeah, it seems like some small developments have already started to take place. I'm very, very interested about the solar-powered trailers, but these are all reading as smaller changes, right? Especially the transport to set with a Tesla, because you would think that already all of the actors have flown out to this location via plane, and of course that uses fuel. So there are some things that can't exactly, to your point, be cut out of the process. But it seems like they're really trying to narrow down and kind of nip out these things in order to remove a lot of waste by 2030.
Yeah, so Netflix's goal is to cut emissions in half by the end of the decade, as you said, by 2030. And it's not linear. The company's 2021 and 2022 emissions increased compared to 2019. I mean, we're watching it.
Yeah.
Like if you open Netflix, the amount of content they're cranking out is pretty astonishing. So they're simply just growing faster than they can keep up with at this point with these changes. But I think the idea is at some point the scale will tip and that they'll be able to curb emissions while also creating more content.
Yeah, we're watching it all happen. Like the amount of new content that Netflix has been pumping out past few years, specifically in reality TV, has definitely rang some alarm bells. So I'm sure that there's some fluctuations throughout the year over here. But how are other companies kind of in the same industry as Netflix? How are they working against this emissions problem as well?
Yeah, so there's something called the Clean Mobile Power Initiative, and that was launched by Netflix along with Walt Disney Company and a nonprofit called RMI. And they partnered so far with 10 startups, and basically they supply clean energy businesses with $100,000 convertible notes, and they introduce them to investors. They let them access sets. So these are companies that are working on, for example, a solar-powered trailer or anything in line with these clean energy products. And they're actually being able to come onto Hollywood sets and beta test their inventions. And that helps Hollywood and it also helps these startups. So I think that was a kind of a really cool program that they've implemented. But it's happening all across Hollywood. Warner Bros., their facility in Leavesden, England, switched to LED lighting and they're testing out solar-powered carts and vehicles. And NBC Universal's Greener Light program brings sustainability to kind of all stages of production, and they're aiming to be carbon neutral by 2035.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like everybody's kind of woken up, maybe a little bit late on this, but it sounds like everybody's at least moving in a good direction. What are some of the biggest challenges that a lot of these companies are citing with this? Because I imagine in production as it is, you can't necessarily control every possible step of the production.
Yeah, so just in Vancouver alone, there are usually about 50 productions filming at any given time, but there are only 7 production-ready batteries. So starting there, like even with the best intentions, the equipment just doesn't exist yet. They're borrowing from one another, but there's just not enough at this time. Also, building a solar-powered trailer costs 50% more than the equivalent diesel trailer, so it's not great for the bottom line. So we talk about that often. I think with kind of the greener options, they're often more expensive.
Totally.
That would need to change for, people to really adapt these things. And then to top it off, actors need to fly and drive to get to filming locations. And that adds a solid chunk to emissions as well. And, the more famous an actor is, the less likely that they're kind of willing to maybe not get on the private jet. So that's something to think about too.
Yeah, my mind is flashing back to all the Taylor Swift private jet hate of last year. So I'm sure that will easily translate to more and more actors over time. And you know what? Fine. As long as we keep the emissions down a little bit. It sounds like everybody's moving in a good direction as well as they can be. But of course, until some of these things like a solar trailer or like LED lit studios become industry standard, it's going to be a bit of a slow crawl, it seems.
Yeah, I think it will move slowly. I think that the bigger deal here, honestly, is just that all eyes are often on celebrities in Hollywood, and the world kind of tries to emulate what they're doing. So I think even talking about this at all, making even the smallest changes could actually have some bigger ramifications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and while we're at it, we can talk about those over 100 billionaires that are left in the world. Don't come for me.
Right.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get signed up at thehustle.co/email and give us a follow on Instagram. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. With access to so much information, it's hard to feel like an informed, discerning citizen. That's why Make Me Smart, a podcast from Marketplace, makes it easy for you to stay in the know. Each weekday, hosts Kai Risdahl and Kimberly Adams unpack the latest from DC, explore the day's tech news, and they make sense of the economy. Because in a world that's constantly changing, we all need to stay smart. Listen to Make Me Smart wherever you get your podcasts.